Hi everyone, it's Andrew here with another Stitch Weekly update. This week I'm going to be doing something a little bit different. I'm going to be doing this. It's a community update about what's been happening at Stitch. Now, if you are a long-time member of Stitch and you're actually based in Sydney, you might have come along to one of these events. That's me in the background. This is actually at the WeWork offices where we had our offices in Sydney. And once a quarter, I used to get the community who lived in Sydney along for a bit of a presentation about what's been happening over the last few months in the community and a bit of social gathering, and we'd then go across for dinner and a few drinks and have a fun time. So it was a bit of a combination of social event and an update. Now, of course, now that we're living in a different world, and also the community is now so global that kind of doesn't make sense anymore. And I've really missed the opportunity to kind of let everyone know what's been happening on a more of a grander scale. So rather than just doing, hey, what's been happening this week, there's really a bit more of an update about what's been happening over the last 3 months. So normally I would run through a few different things about what's been happening in the community, a few of the different features that are either just recently been announced or over the last couple of months or you can expect. And then normally we'd have a Q&A, but you don't have an opportunity for that. But at the end of this, if you do have questions, you can always send them through to us. And I'm running a couple of events. I ran one for Australia, the US is coming up next week, UK next week, where people who can watch this video and answer and ask me any questions you've got. So you'll get your opportunity and we'll have our social get together anyway. So let's kick off with community happenings. And the thing I'm getting asked a lot at the moment is if you've seen the messaging about the Stitch crisis that's come on as a result of COVID and the global crisis, but also what it means for the community, a lot of people are asking me, how about an update? So we've got some good news and bad news. So let me kick off with the lowlights, just so we can get them out of the way. One of the things that we did in response to the crisis was to reach out to as many opportunities that we had for government funding, grants. There were a lot of, there's this raised awareness about the importance, we've been talking about it for years, the importance of social connections, and disconnections for people really have an impact on quality of life and so on. So one of the good things about the COVID crisis is it's really shone a light on it for a lot of people who weren't really aware of it before, about what it's like to be isolated. So we put in for some grants with New South Wales State Government, had a grant for people helping older adults during the crisis, social connections for older adults. We had an event, a grant for the Parramatta Council, which is one of the community councils here in local government in Sydney. City of Sydney had one. We put in for that. We really thought that what we were doing was exactly what these programs were designed to build, and if we were successful there, then we'd go on and apply elsewhere, because we've got communities all around the world. But unfortunately, rejected. It was pretty depressing. I put a lot of work onto these things, nights and weekends, just putting together these applications for grants. They're really time consuming. I even had help from one of our members here in Sydney who's got a background in writing grants. And we kind of thought, you know, we were pretty much exactly what was needed. I mean, that's what Stitch was built for, right? Social connections. We've got the virtual stuff to keep people safe, all that sort of stuff. And we just got flat out rejected. Very, very depressing. After a bit of soul searching, I thought, I've got to be doing something wrong. It's got to be something with us. Turns out, so we've actually been able to reach out to some of these government organisations and get a bit more feedback from them about kind of why it is that our programs aren't necessarily being supported by government funding. And the answer that came back actually surprised me. I thought it might be something to do with maybe we weren't playing politics right, or there was something there. But essentially it comes down to the fact that Stitch is not like anything these guys have recognised before. We look really unique. And a lot of the ways that these programs work are that the review process tends to fund things that they've funded in the past, things that look like things they've funded in the past, particularly local grassroots organisations that might have been just operating in the local area and so on. Now, Stitch is that, but we've designed this technology platform to bring all that stuff together and mobilise our members and do all these things. And you know, so the promise of what we're building is so much greater, and ambition is so much greater, we think, than anything else that's been seen before. The problem with that is government doesn't recognise what we are. So that's been really a bit of a bummer, but it's been a lesson for us because we need to then reach out to different channels, and we're getting some advice from government about how to do that, particularly on the political side of things, which is not my forte. The idea of actually asking for help rather than just going and doing something is kind of not my way of going about things, but we really do need this help. So that's something we're going to be working on. And again, it doesn't matter where you are, we'll need this help for our communities in the UK, in the US, everywhere. If you want to get involved, please let me know. As a result, one of the other downsides of that, this is the two of the lead developers on the team. We've got a really small team. You can see our office here in, this was some shared space at WeWork, and Jason and Andy in the picture here. And unfortunately, we love this office. We've worked out of there for a few years. It provides a lot of opportunities to get our members in and just work in a nice environment. But unfortunately, we're going to have to shut it down. The unfortunate reality of the financial situation we find ourselves in, we had to make lots of sacrifices ourselves, and we just have to figure out how else can we tighten the belt to be able to keep the community operating. So there's another sacrifice. Everyone's now fully working from home. I work out of my home. It seems like I never leave this room 24/7. But you know, and I really appreciate the sacrifices that the team's making in order to help the community. Hopefully this is the last kind of sacrifice we need to make, but you know, it really depends on making progress. Now, that brings us to a bit more of the good news. So in terms of the highlights, one of the things that I thought was useful to share, we have a goal of getting to at least being able to sustain the community and obviously grow, but we can't have Stitch unless we can pay our bills, and that's, you know, the reality. We are in a real crisis. So we have set some goals about what it's going to take to get to sustainability. And it really today, because of some of the loss of our partners' support and sponsors, we now are relying purely on our memberships and donations, but mainly memberships. Now, at the height of the crisis, at the darkest point in the crisis, we were getting about 3 to 4 new member subscriptions. That's members who become a full member every day. And that's not enough to sustain a community. You know, we've got a lot of costs like the software development and insurance and legal, and I mean, you name it. It actually costs a lot to keep us going, and that just doesn't make it work. So we looked at it and we set a target, and if we could get to on average 22 members joining, new members joining per day, or existing members upgrading to a higher plan, then we would be able to make it to safety. You know, that's our goal, get to safety. And the good news is, over the last couple of months since we announced the crisis and we made a real focus on making some changes to the community to really grow and get our members involved, it's really shot up. So we've made it to 11. So we're halfway there. In a space of 2.5 months, we've got halfway to survival. Now, I don't know, this graph looks a lot like a glass half full, glass half empty sort of thing. I'm much more of a glass half full sort of person. So to me, that's fantastic. I really think that we're going to get there. We've got a long way to go, but we have a lot of support. So some other things that have been really helpful to that, we've had a bunch of, you know, press coverage, which has been really helpful. And then the way that kind of press coverage works is once you're in the news, then that tends to lead to other opportunities. So we're working on a couple at the moment. And then that does a bunch of things, and these are, hopefully they're not too boring graphs, but sometimes I like to share what's been happening. So this graph here is of the new events and activities that have been happening on Stitch. Just over the last 12 months, you can see it's bouncing around, we're up high, and then there's this big drop off during the height of the crisis. As soon as the pandemic hit, everything, all bets were off. But since then, over the last couple of months, and that's been our focus, the last 2.5 months, it's been steadily climbing back up again. And not only that, greater diversity in locations, in more people attending, that sort of thing. So that's been really, really cool. But as you know, Stitch is more than just about events and activities. People use it for a lot more. We've got the online discussions, interest groups, messaging, and one-on-one connections, all that sort of stuff. So this is a great graph. I love this graph. It is our total engagement on Stitch over the last 2 years. So look at that. That shows you that we've been really, there's been a step change in our what we've been able to produce for our members in Stitch over the last couple of months, the level of enthusiasm and engagement, And we think we're just scratching the surface. We've got so much to go. So that's fantastic. So that's really, really good news. So again, glass half full sort of person. If I'd love to see this graph continuing to go up, but those changes in a couple of months have been huge. And if we can continue to make them, then we think we're going to get to survival, which would be fantastic. And of course, it's not just about survival. The community has to grow, because the bigger it grows, the more members, so there are more social connections that you guys, that all our members, get to create. So it's kind of like it's a win-win for everyone. The bigger we grow, the better it is for everyone in the community, and the more enriching everything gets. Anyway, the final bit of really good news, I want to tell you about a couple of things we've been looking at about really how do we get our members to join. Now, if you don't know Richard's a member in Sydney. He's very passionate about Stitch, joined several years ago and runs a very, very large group. And he's passionate about all sorts of stuff, dancing and helping people and all that sort of stuff. So if you're in Sydney, you'd know Richard, but for those of you not in Australia, you probably don't. Richard has been working with me on a few ideas about what we can do to help grow the community. And one thing he's been doing a lot of is helping us understand that journey when people first join. So the new members page is an area that we're improving and adding to. And Richard has been using the new members page to reach out to new members, surprise, surprise, when they first join. Because it might surprise you that when someone joins Stitch, they get a lot of emails from me, automated emails. I've written them, but they go out, they welcome to the community. And to a large extent, it makes me a bit sad to say this, but they often just ignore them because that's what happens when you join a website. When you join when you sign up for anything, you get emails, right? We get bombarded with emails, and people have a tendency to tune out. It doesn't matter how good we say Stitch is. There's a level of cynicism that people have because they're just they don't know, and how do they tell the difference between Stitch and any other website? It's when they hear from our members that it really transforms. So it's really about our members telling new members what they have created, or what we have all created as a community. So what Richard's been doing is every day, or frequently, sending out welcome to new members in the area, offering to help them with any, getting verified, telling them to come along to the events that he's hosting, that sort of thing, and just basically being welcoming. And what's been really cool, so we look a lot at how many times do people, when they do join, because we get a lot of people just signing up to Stitch to see what it's like, but what makes them become a full member? And on average, in Richard's area, on average, this represents kind of the percentage. Only it's a few percent of them actually decide to join, on average. But when they've been welcomed by a member, when they've been welcomed by Richard, it shoots up dramatically. It's something like 9 times higher when they've been welcomed by a real member. I mean, it stands to reason. If you are welcomed by someone and you get to learn that this is something that is real, it's not just a website, it's a community, then it makes people more likely to join. So hats off to Richard, number one, but this is something that there's going to be a recurring theme for us as we really start to help get people connected. It's not just about coming to the events and activities. We know that a lot of new members can't even get into events and activities because they get full up because the full members get them first. But that's something we're working on, and there's going to be a theme for us. So that brings me to the next slide, which is really about the recent and upcoming changes to Stitch. So first one, following on from that, the new members page. So you'll all get a message now about new members who've joined in your area. And we're going to be making a new membership a focus because we've got a lot of people who might join Stitch some time ago and they get a little bit disengaged. If they haven't got engaged for whatever reason, then they kind of forget about it. But those new members, they really need a little bit of support when they first join, because that's the thing that gets them involved. They see what it's about. They understand what our mission is and why everyone in the community pretty much is a good person, and it's just about connection. So the new member page is now better and improved. You get notified about the new members. I encourage you to try it out. We're going to be improving that even further over the next few weeks to make it easier for our established members to reach out to more people, to welcome them in and get them into the community easier. So that stay tuned for that. But even today, you can use the new membership page. You are much more likely to get a response from a new member than someone who's been on the site for a while and hasn't been engaged. Although you do get to see, we have a little symbol on the membership page that will tell you if someone's very responsive, and if you're responsive, you get booted up. So it really rewards people who tend to respond to the messages that they get. We've also rolled out global groups and activities. Some of you have probably heard me talking about this if you've watched my recent weekly updates, but for those who are only tuning in for this one, we now have the ability to create global groups and global activities based on a particular interest. So Stitch is evolving. It's not just about only meeting people in your local area. That's great if you can, but some people live in areas where it's either not a large population, or particularly if you have a specific interest. You might not find many people in your area that have that exact same interest, but around the global Stitch community, there will be people with those interests. So here's a couple that is coming up. We've got the Widows and Widows events. There's a Widows and Widowers group on the Stitch, and we had some suggestions that it would be great to get people together to talk about what they've gone through grief, and those people who've gone through it, helping people who might be really struggling right now. So there are a couple of events coming up. There's a ukulele group. We've got French chat groups. We've got Italian. There's, you name it. So if you've got a particular interest, the best thing to do is to create a group, and you should be able to do that. Anyone can do it, create a group. Now that no one knows about the group until you then start creating events and activities, because Stitch is all about engagement. It's one thing to just have something online, but unless you're actually creating something and getting people together, they won't necessarily find out about it. So if you want to create a group, my first suggestion would be to create it and then create a get together to say, hey, anyone interested in this, let's get together, have a chat, talk about how we could build that part of the community. And then things just snowball from there. So please give that a go. We're going to be tracking that a lot over the next few weeks to see just how much people start to get creative with the sorts of things they'd like to do in the community. So one of the things that we've also done recently is rolled out the ability to duplicate events. So if you are an organizer, one of the best things for members when they first join Stitch is to see that it's not just one event coming up. There's a series of these things. I can see that this is a thing that I could get involved in, and it also saves you time rather than having to wait till the end of your event, wait till it's finished to then be able to then recreate on Stitch. Now you can duplicate events. So let me show you how that works. So if you're an organizer of an event, all you need to do is here's one of mine coming up. So this is an event to talk about what's been happening on Stitch. So you just go to the event you're organizing, and you can click here on the settings page, and you see at the top of the page there's a duplicate event, and all that does is kick off the event creation process again, or recreation process. You get to step through the same steps, but it's all been pre-filled. You can change anything you want. It's pretty easy, and then you publish. So if you've got a 6-week yoga course that you're running, or you want to do a monthly get-together and you just want to lock it in so people can put their name down for the next few months, just put them in. It makes it so much easier for everybody. So that's that one. Another change that's about to come out is a big focus for us on promotion of positive behavior on Stitch. This is something, it's a little bit hard to explain unless you've been in my shoes, but we find again and again that a lot of people join Stitch with the best intentions, but without realizing, sometimes they rub other people up the wrong way. And this particularly happens online, because online communication is really tricky. People don't understand sarcasm sometimes. There's a lot of things, but there's also behavior that we want to make sure we encourage, and some behavior that we want to discourage. So a great example of encouraging behavior is someone like Richard welcoming new members. Discouraging behavior would be people just sending a really short phishing type message to be, hey babe, to thousands of messages. We just don't want that sort of thing. We've got the verification system on Stitch to make sure that people are real, but it doesn't mean they always behave the way we would like them to behave. And nowhere on the internet do you have a site that actually, as far in my experience, it really is focused on how to create good behavior. Everything that happens on Twitter or Facebook tends to encourage this idea that, well, it's anonymous, it's free, I can get away with anything. And the worst of people come out. And our goal with Stitch is to create the best. So you're going to see a bunch of things rolling out along that theme in the coming weeks and months. We're starting with the online discussions, but it's going to apply to everything, even real world behavior. Just going to take us some time to get there. Let me show you what I mean. So here's an online discussion, and we're changing the process where we've had a feature kind of half done for a while about upvoting and downvoting comments. But we've taken a lot of input from our members, and we've recently added the ability to report behaviour, and it's instantly taken out of Stitch to give us a chance to look at it, so it doesn't do anyone any harm while it's up there. But we also now are improving that to, or expanding that beyond just the most, like reporting something is like, this is a flagrant breach of the community rules or guidelines. But what about those times when people are just kind of, I don't know, annoying or aggressive or passive aggressive or demeaning to you? And it's not really terrible. It's not a flagrant breach of the guidelines, but it's not nice. And we're trying to create encouragement for positive behavior. So here's how it works. When it comes to comments and to topics on Stitch, you can then either upvote or downvote it. Basically, you're saying, I want to encourage this or I want to discourage this sort of behavior. But importantly, you have to actually select a reason, and there are only select reasons for you to be able to upvote something. In the case of upvoting for comments, it's about whether they're kind, respectful, welcoming, that sort of thing. You can vote something up for saying you agree with it, but that's actually not used by our system, because we don't want a community where everybody agrees with everybody. I mean, what's that about? It's actually about respectful debate and respectful argument. I mean, wouldn't it be great to bring that back into the world? So you're allowed to say I'm upvoting because I agree with it, but that actually doesn't make a difference to whether it's really upvoted in the system. What we're saying is there are reasons where there are behaviors that are valid to be upvoted, and we really want to encourage it. And by the same token, there are behaviors that we want to discourage. And for example, if people are being unkind or disrespectful or disruptive or domineering, then you're able to downvote it. Now, at the moment, all that does is just give some gentle prods in the right direction. Because again, our philosophy is people just sometimes need to learn what's the right way to behave. But if you're continually breaking the rules, if you're continually doing things and lots of people say that you're not contributing positively to the community, we will be stepping in to actually say, well, you need to take a break. Now, I mentioned that we'll be talking about doing this for other aspects of Stitch as well, and that includes when you're receiving just a direct message from someone. That's probably a few weeks away before we have that ability. But again, if one person is sending you an unsavory message, but it's not terrible, but it's not great, you're not going to report them to us. Stands to reason. Why would you? So the idea will be that if a lot of people report that person for consistently negative behavior, there's probably a time that Stitch is going to need to check in and step in and make sure that doesn't happen anymore. So that's a bit of a theme for us. Keep an eye out for it. It really relies on the system being used properly by our members. So we've got some checks and balances. Then if people are downvoting things and it turns out that they're using the system incorrectly or abusing it, then they'll be subject to corrective action as well. It's a bit of an experiment. I'm not aware of any site that's trying to do something like this, but we're so committed to Stitch needs to be a rewarding experience for our members. We want them to participate and then feel as though they're welcomed and not belittled or anything like that. So this is our way of nudging everyone towards the right outcomes, giving them feedback that maybe the way they said that was not appropriate and they need to be better at doing it. And then over time, we're going to make this community better for everyone. Sound good? All right, and that's it. So that's pretty much it for the update for this time. If you've got questions, as I said, either come along to one of my upcoming events for the UK or the US. Australia's one was last night, so that's why I'm looking a little bit tired. We had a fun time. But you can always shoot us a message and let us know what else you'd like to cover. The summary really for us is it's been fantastic to see the support that we've received from our members. We're halfway there. If we can keep on doing, we've still got a lot to do, but and I think it's going to be hard, but we can make it. We've got a couple of months left for us to really get over that hump, and if we can all pull together, I'm sure we're going to get there. So until next week, thanks for everything, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye for now.